Oh boy. Holly, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So it says my camera's been disabled and
Your camera's fine.
We can see and hear you.
oh, you can? Okay, great.
Yes, we can
Does
see
it
you and
show
hear
me
you.
on, does it show me on the attendee list as a visitor or as board member?
But you have your
Okay.
board plate behind you, so we can see that you're a board member.
Close enough.
So it's 10 o'clock.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Holly Herrera, and I'm the board administrator for today's board meeting, July 11, 2024. If you're logged into Teams in person, please mute your laptops to prevent feedback and echo. And this meeting is being recorded. Madam Chair Stevens, we are ready to begin.
Hey, I will call this meeting to order and hand it back to you, Holly, for roll call.
You, Catherine Stevens,
President.
Sarah Lucas,
Present.
Steve Nagy. Let's see if Steve's is logged in as an attendee here. I don't see
Expect him
Steve.
soon.
Did you say that he's going to be there in person? And he's there?
He'll be here in person probably shortly.
Okay. And then we have Bill Gropp,
Here.
Jeff Pritcher. Anybody here from Jeff Pritcher? He's not logged in.
He would be attending remote.
Okay, so we'll have to get an excused absence. Is he excused for today's meeting?
Okay.
For the record?
I haven't heard from him. He may just be logging in a bit late, but.
Okay, we'll wait to see if he logs in late. And then Brian Prang, he's not going to be attending today, the meeting. And then just for the record, can you excuse that as a excuse absence? Okay, it looks like roll call is over, and then introductions.
Holly,
Yes, she does.
that's Jim Knight.
Hi, Jim.
I did not get included in the roll call.
And
So,
Jim Knight.
so
Thank you,
board
Jim.
members, I wanted to tell you, just take a quick moment that yes, I'm in attendance and I'd give anything I could to be there in person, but I came down with COVID within a week of our last board meeting. And just in, I feel like I've totally recovered. I don't have any symptoms, but in just being very cautious, I just felt it was right for me to not be in attendance. But I'm still here with all my heart. So thank you for allowing me to take a moment, Chair.
All right, thank you, Jim. And Holly, Steve Nagy is also here.
I'm present.
Hi, Steve. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Holly. So today what we are doing is going through the Connect Oregon 2024 Modal Committee instructions. Now, Alex providing that direction to us, and then we'll proceed with listening to all of the presentations and then do our discussion along with resorting and scoring. Alex, should I hand it to you so you can tell us what we're up to today?
Sure, probably should have brought my computer in here, but basically we'll just be going through each of the Connect Oregon presentations. Everybody's been invited, they're on the schedule. Everybody will have their 3 slides in about 5 or so minutes to provide a presentation, and then a few minutes for some questions. And that's really about it. And then at the end, we can discuss and the board will provide their rankings. And then those are due to ODAV by end of day tomorrow. And then they're going to take it from there, and we're getting close to the final stages for Connect Oregon and then making their selection within the next couple of months.
That's great. Thank you. And then I'll just take this opportunity to remind all the board members, if you do have a conflict or a potential conflict, you should just state that. And then some of us aren't able to talk about our own airports projects. So that we have representatives that will be doing that for us today. Okay, any questions about the process?
Chair Stevens, I do have a quick question. I think it may be helpful for our audience, particularly our participants who are there today, to at some point to give an understanding of how the initial ranking was prepared prior to the total review of the board. And if this isn't the appropriate time for Alex to speak to that, then I'd suggest that at some point that we do address the issue. So we're being open to our constituents.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Alex, you want to give it a little synopsis?
I can talk about it briefly now, and then I can provide some more details as we go through the process. But so here, a couple months ago now, ODAV team, so myself, Andrea, Ermi Munkel, and then Lisa Sardinia, we sat down and we reviewed all the aviation-related projects. And we basically went along the same scoring that the board will be going through today on scoring points based on different sections of the project application. And then we compiled that, we sent that over to ODOT, and that's where we're at now with the aviation, specifically the aviation project rankings. I know that's very brief, and we can get into that a little bit more as we progress through it. Does that help, Jim, or is there more clarification that you'd like?
Thanks, Alex. I realize we have so much to do and go over today, so I don't really want to belabor the points, but I think that's a good enough overview for the time being, unless any other board members have some comments.
No.
Okay. So we will head into the presentations now. I do want to let everyone know we've got a lot of people to hear today, and so we're going to really stick to time. I actually have I have a couple of French exchange students waiting for me to pick them up in Eugene. So I am motivated to have a very efficient process today. So
I will make my statement very brief. I don't have a potential conflict of interest. I do want to disclose that my company did write a letter of support for the Columbia Gorge Regional Airport. I've talked to ethics and they don't believe there is conflict or potential for conflict.
okay, thank you for that. And then, of course, I have for the Eugene Airport, we did put in a proposal.
And the Port Portland has a proposal and that are among the rankings as well. So yes, we will, I'm assuming both state our
Yes.
conflicts.
Conflicts.
Yes. And Stacy, I saw your name on there. So if there's anything that you want us to ensure we take care of in the process, please advise us as well.
Yes. All right. So our first presentation is going to be Lee Walker from Grant County, and I'm actually slide.
I'd like to say something. Andrea, can you, it sounds like you're a little far away from the mic. We can't hear you online, or I'm having trouble hearing. I'm not sure if anybody else is having some cutout issues online.
Is that a little bit better? I moved closer to it.
Yes, as long as you're, stay close. Yeah, it's a little faded.
Okay, I'll try to speak loudly.
Thank you so much.
All right, Haley, hopefully you can see your slides up there.
I can. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, I could hear you.
Is it go time? Good morning, everyone. I'm Haley Walker with the Grant County Regional Airport, and we are presenting our fuel upgrade and expansion project that we've been working on seeking funding for a couple of years. The purpose of this grant application and project is to increase fuel capacity to support current aviation activity, as well as meeting the growing demand for aviation fuel in the region. Also to enhance the reliability, efficiency, and safety of aviation transportation. The objectives of the project are to modernize our infrastructure to meet current and future aviation fuel demands, to ensure compliance with environmental and safety regulations, and the scope of the project is to remove and decommission our current underground fuel storage tanks, procure and install new above-ground storage tanks with increased capacity, and upgrade our fuel dispensing systems, piping, turbine sumps, and additional safety features. Next slide, please. So what are some of the benefits and impact of the project? So first off, we have our operational efficiency and reliability to reduce refueling wait times and support higher air traffic volume, to minimize supply chain disruptions, to ensure continuity of essential services, to enhance airport operational capabilities and turnaround times. We do know, based on our current activity, that the tanks are well beyond their capacity limits due to increased fire aviation suppression demand. Another benefit related to economics, what is the impact there? To stimulate economic growth by supporting industries reliant on aviation fuels such as general aviation, fire aviation suppression, medical transport aviation in our rural area, as well as agriculture aviation. The installation phase of the project will create jobs in engineering, construction, and related industries. And additionally, the enhanced fuel infrastructure will support local and regional job retention in sectors that rely on consistent access to aviation fuel. A more efficient and reliable fuel network can lead to cost savings for businesses and consumers. We know that reduced transportation costs and lower risk of supply shortages translates into lower fuel prices, improved affordability for end users, and airport resilience. We also know that disruptions in fuel supply has significant economic repercussions affecting businesses, consumers, and essential services. And lastly, safety and compliance. The existing fuel infrastructure is from 1980, so that's well beyond its useful life of 20 years, resulting in the increased cost for insurance, annual inspections, and difficulty sourcing replacement parts. Also, modernizing fuel infrastructure leads to environmental benefits by reducing the risk of fuel leaks and emissions. Next slide, please. So the funding requirements and call to action. So our estimated total project cost is $1,403,000. Our request to Connect Oregon is $982,100, and we already have matching funds allocated through bipartisan infrastructure law funds, the amount of $420,900. How will we use these funds? $1.27 million will be for the infrastructure procurement and construction, $113,000 for design, engineering, permitting, and administration, $20,000 for contingency. Our next steps are to secure the funds from partners, finalize the project planning and environmental assessments, and then, of course, begin the construction. Our proposed start date is December 1st of this year, and our projected end date is June 30th, 2026. And the late end date on that is due to just a buffer in there for procurement of the infrastructure itself. That is our project. Thank you for taking the time to listen and entertain, and I'd be happy to answer any question.
Okay, thank you so much. Questions? I think that was a comprehensive presentation. So thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
You bet. I'll see y'all in a little over an hour.
Jeff Pritchard is now he's here in the chat and available online.
Okay, very good. And for those of you joining us online, if you do have questions, you need to just speak up because we can't see you when the presentation slide is up. Just so you're aware. Okay, we'll move on to the next one.
All right, next week, we'll give Jeff Renard, and I will be presenting for him. And Jeff. Jeff, are you on?
I'm
Yes,
sorry, who
I'm
are you
here.
looking for?
Sorry.
Sorry, Jeff Renard from Columbia Gorge. Sorry. I'll see him.
Yes, I don't see him logged in, and I don't know who AMS is. That any presenter?
I'm on. I couldn't get it.
Oh,
to
there's
open
Jeff.
up.
Hi, Jeff.
There he is.
Sorry
Hi,
about
Jeff.
that.
Let me get your presentation shared for you.
I thought I heard you say Pritchard as well. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning, Good morning, board and presenters. I guess we can put the first slide up.
Yes, I'm just giving it up for you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share about our airport and the hangar development project that we're working on. Columbia Gorge Regional Airport is a little bit of a unique airport, being co-owned between the city of the Dalles and Klickitat County, and we've been operating under a joint operating agreement since 2002. This hangar project that we're presenting is, apologize. Yeah, there we go. We've got a, man, I'm not very good at this. Completing the hangar project the development will bring the airport very close to self-sustainment. We just completed a $3.4 million FAA South Apron rehab and added additional 5 taxi lanes to this. The hangar development project also completes one of the last major capital improvement projects in the airport's current master plan. Completing this project also allows the immediate use of the new taxi lanes constructed with the FAA funding. The airport's current active waiting list has 40 people on the waiting list. The majority of those are from outside of the area and would be relocating and creating additional revenue streams for the airport and the state of Oregon. KDLS is located along the I-84 corridor and is the furthest west airport east of the Cascades, making it a needed aviation resource for the future Cascadia event and aligning with the Oregon State's Resilience and Recovery Plan. KDLS is a critical aviation facility with based operations for life flight and regional wildfire fighting resources for multiple state and federal agencies. And with the growth of the UAS capabilities and the companies in Oregon, specifically in the Gorge, the need for aviation professionals in this industry, as well as the previously mentioned industries, to have a place to relocate their businesses, base their operations, and house their aircraft at KDLS is critical for aviation in the state of Oregon. CGRA has been recognized by Business Oregon as having one of the largest industrial sites left in the region, and the increased traffic based on future business, we anticipate filling many hangars. Columbia Gorge Regional Airport also is the future home of the Columbia Gorge Community College A&P training facility, which will soon be constructed, which will bring a whole nother group of aircraft and pilots to our region. And again, thank you for the opportunity to share this hangar project with you. As the slides reflect, I apologize, this is my first presentation, so I'm a little rusty at this. As the slides show, we've got opportunity to build 4 different sets of units. The 2 furthest to the left in the video or in the presentation are the proposed sites, and the 2 10-unit T hangars, each generating about $48,000 of revenue a year in hangar income, which brings us basically to just shy of self-sufficiency for the airport, which has been a primary goal for me and for the airport. Could you go to the next slide, Andrea?
I'm on the 3rd one. This was the last slide.
I'm sorry. Okay. That's all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Great, thank you so much for that presentation. Are there any questions from board members?
Question. I like the idea of the self-sufficient airport. Don't see that very often. You say you're close. How close would this project get to balancing the sheets?
Presently, we have the sponsors $130,000 total revenue outside of the existing. We bring in $130,000 of revenue, so the $96,000 puts us within $60,000 of self-sufficiency outside of match money and any other needed additional funds just to do projects.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much for that presentation. We appreciate that. The next one.
I don't see Karen Morgan logged in. Karen Morgan.
Yeah,
Oh,
Holly, this is Greg Rents with Century West Engineering. I have Karen Morgan and Shara Shumway with me here.
thank you so much. Hi.
Hi, yes.
Welcome.
Let me go ahead. I can go ahead and share my screen and we can do our presentation for you guys. Everyone see this okay on your end?
Yes, we can.
Perfect, thank you. Well, I'll start. My name is Greg Rents. I'm a project manager with Century West Engineering. And again, with me today is Karen Morgan, office manager, and Shara Shumway, board chair with the Christmas Valley Park and Recreation District. I wanted to start with a brief overview of our project. Big picture, we're going to be performing a runway reconstruction. What you see in orange will include that work. Also, the east and west connector taxiways. The 2022 pavement condition was listed at 59. However, the runway is at a tipping point right now where it's anticipated to experience rapid deterioration over the next 5 to 10 years. In fact, the 2027 predicted pavement condition was 44, which is which is poor. And then in 2032, it's actually predicted to be very poor at a PCI of 27. So this runway is in need of reconstruction very soon. And at the end of the project or at the conclusion of the work, obviously the pavement will be in good condition with a PCI of 100. Electrical improvements include runway edge lighting replacement, threshold lights, and the runway 25 PAPI replacement. What's shown in blue would consist of a rehabilitation of the parallel taxiway, apron, and 2 midfield connector taxiways. That would consist of a crack seal or a fog seal. And this project was reconstructed back in 2015 with Connect Oregon funds as well. So it's maintaining that initial investment that was made. Next slide, wanted to talk about the overall project costs. We're just under $8.3 million for the overall program. However, I want to highlight the match of this project where for every $1 of Connect Oregon funds that go into the project, it's leveraging almost $10 in other funds, either the FAA or the Core 2024 program. And we've been in communication with the FAA since the winter about this project. They're committed to getting this project funded. We've been working with the Park and Rec District for almost 20 years now, and we see the FAA funding project at Christmas Valley every about 10 to 15 years. So it's almost a once in a generation opportunity to try and take advantage of the FAA putting money into this right now. So what I've listed on the screen here is our approach to the project. This year will be the design, and then in 2025 will be the taxiway rehabilitation portion. And then in 2026 will be the main runway reconstruction portion. So big picture, the Christmas Valley Airport serves a vital community need in North Lake County. There's economic benefit with the agricultural region surrounding the airport. Air ambulance is a critical link to the community, as you can see in the photo here. It can be an hour and 45-minute drive time.
Listen to.
Rose? Is that right?
Hey, Greg, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, guys. I'm not sure how that happened. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure how that randomly muted on me. Sorry about that. So the airport serves a vital community need for North Lake County, provides economic benefit to the region. Again, the air ambulance is critical to the community. Hour 45-minute drive versus a 45-minute flight can be crucial in life-saving measures. It's also uniquely positioned between Burns, Central Oregon, and Lake County to serve as firefighting and search and rescue staging areas as well. And so if in the event the project is not funded and the runway deteriorates to a point where it's no longer usable, there's going to be a gap in the aviation system out here. So the Connect Oregon grant is crucial. The project cannot proceed without it. The Christmas Valley Park and Rec District is a relatively small organization. They don't have the ability to match even a 5 or 10% FAA grant of a $7 to $8 million project. So Connect Oregon is crucial into the success of this project. So big picture summary, the project leverages a high amount of dollars from other sources and maintains the existing system at the airport and also continues to provide for emergency services. Appreciate everyone's time today and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Right, thank you so much. Any questions from board members? Jim?
Thank you for your presentation. Just a couple of questions. I noticed in the budget that you did not line item a contingency amount for the project. And I've got a couple of things. Let me just ask my questions and then you can go ahead and address those.
Yes.
So there's the contingency issue, and I think it would be helpful for the board to better understand is that the project is really entirely based upon grants, and the future maintenance or issues that are going to potentially come up are also based strictly on grants. So I do have a question. Do you have any type of a backup, or at least help us understand why and I can guess it's because of a lack of other funding, but if you could speak to those issues about contingency and then future funding availability for repairs or ongoing maintenance. So anyway, those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good questions, Jim. Thank you. I'll start with the contingency, and our overall total project cost does have contingency built into it. Our ask to the FAA when they put together their CIP letter, we typically have a 10 to 20% contingency built into our estimates because again, this is 3, 4, 5 years out. Obviously, inflation is going to be increasing prices over the years. We just didn't specify that in the line item. But it is that contingency cost is covered in the overall project cost and the grant amounts that are coming in. So we feel we're covered for that future uncertainty and inflation with the estimates we have now. And to answer the question about the future funding, yes, you're right. Being the Park and Rec District not having a whole lot of money to supplement on their own, they do rely heavily on future grant funds. And so between core grants, future connector grants, obviously the FAA as well, those would be the main sources for continuing to maintain the pavement that you see out there. Does that answer questions you have there, Jim?
You have good answers. It is, if those grants don't come through, do you have a strategy or backup plan?
I think if the FAA grant, Connect Oregon grant, or what are you talking about?
Well, I don't think there's any danger from FAA, but
Yeah.
future core grants, it's a very competitive, and it's always a rolling number as to how much is the total availability of core funding.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's a good question. I've been doing core grants with ODAV since its inception in 2017. And I found that the projects that match the AIP funded projects are obviously ranked much higher than standoff projects. So I think we would just rely heavily on the core funding opportunity and how it ranks highly to match the AIP funds. I think that'd be the best avenue moving forward for the projects.
okay. Thank you very much. I sure appreciate your comments.
Yeah, thank you for the questions.
Okay, any other questions from board members? Great, thank you so much. We very much appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, go to next one.
We've got Zach Bass for Redmond.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
And
Yes.
can you guys see my first slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, Zach Bass, Redmond Airport. I'm here to talk about our terminal expansion, but first I want to kind of tell you a quick story about the Redmond Municipal Airport. We have one of the largest catchment areas geographically in the state. Basically, we provide commercial air service to everything east of the Cascades. We run an 86% retention rate. The airport itself creates about 1,000 jobs, has 50 companies on airport property. One of the largest United States Forest Service firefighting bases in the country is here. We have been identified as a critical asset for FEMA and Cascadia. And really quickly, we right now operate 5 airlines, 13 nonstop destinations, which makes us the 3rd largest commercial airport in Oregon. By operations, we're 5th largest with just under 100,000 operations last year. To the right, you'll really see the story of growth. 2008 is when we expanded our current terminal. Since that time, we are 3 times larger and are expecting 1.3 million passengers to move through RDM this fiscal year. So in the last 5 years, we've gone through a lot of processes to get us to where we are today, and that is our main terminal expansion project. Right now, the cost is at $170 million that we have come up with. So in your packages, you saw 145. We've actually came up with more than that from our side. The full project is estimated at 170. We currently have no ground boarding jet bridges. So we will be adding 7 during this project. 100,000 square feet expansion, 10,000 square feet of new retail concessions. And then really the biggest piece of this is this ADA section. Right now, as you can imagine, you go outside during inclement weather in the winter here in Central Oregon, we're having a lot of issues with access for those individuals that need the ADA kind of process. So those jet bridges are going to be key to that. Now, as we started moving through this process over the last 3-4 years, we've gone through quite a few value engineering issues, and we have actually now have to cut out a lot that we were intending to put in there to begin with, which is new ticketing, our baggage claim, any kind of TSA screening, any car rentals. And basically in the yellow here at the bottom, you will see what we're focusing on, which is our major pain point. And again, for ADA issues, those jet bridges. So how are we funding this? The airport itself is putting in $125 million. We're throwing everything at this, guys. And we are using 5 to 6 years of all of our FAA entitlements. We've got some infrastructure bill money. We were successful for this last year with the ATP grant. We are going to be putting in for the next 2 ATP grants, but we are seeking $10 million from Connect Oregon. The impact of this project is, again, it's a leverage of $170 million for the Connect dollars. We're fully approved. Everybody's on board. We've already done our first bid package. We've already spent or allocated $25 million. We did an economic study through the state. This will create 207 long-term jobs, over 350 construction jobs, but I'm focusing on long-term, and just under $40 million in annual economic impact. We, again, are the only large kind of commercial airport east of the Cascades. So we see a lot of business through here, and it's really crucial to our tourism industry. We're at around $1.4 billion brought in, also our businesses. And so this upgrade is going to allow us to keep those on track. So the $10 million from Connect Oregon, we will be putting into this project. But if we kind of had to narrow it down, it would be applied to the baggage claim expansion and re-adding that alternate back into this project. It's frustrating we don't have the money for this, because it's kind of like buying a new car, but you can't afford the trunk. And so it really does kind of put a hamper on this project as a whole. Again, I believe it's the largest financial single project that's ever been done in Central Oregon. So we are pushing through. Appreciate your time and be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Questions from board members? Jim?
Could you please speak to the bond measure that you're anticipating issuing? I mean, $80 million is a significant portion of the project. Has there been a study of what was the appetite for the bond itself, and what would happen if the bond measure fails? How does that affect your project?
Good question, Jim. And this is not a GO bond. This is a revenue bond.
Okay.
So it is the airport taking out the debt service on $90 million.
Got it.
There's no, in this project right now, there is no city, region, none of that is coming into play. It's all been funded through the airport at this point.
Just a real quick follow-up question on in your application. It was in section 13. It was under the project property control. It's the last sentence of number 13. The grant request will allow the airport to complete critical pieces of the project that will need to be removed if this grant is unavailable. Could you please explain that sentence for us?
Yeah, I think that's what we've seen as we've worked through our project itself, and what we had to take out during value engineering was this baggage claim. So I think that's what we're speaking to, right? If we don't get this grant, there's this piece, especially the baggage claim, that we will not be able to fund during this project. So maybe it came at it kind of a different way, but that was the intention.
Good answers to these questions. I do appreciate your help a lot.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. No more questions for me.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, Zach. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Okay, on to the next one.
Next up, we've got balance, and I see Josh Leclerc presenting. Josh, are you there? Are you going to present for Corvallis?
Josh,
Hi.
can you hear us okay? Hi, Josh.
Yeah, I'm here. Lisa is going to be presenting.
She is. Okay, I didn't see her on.
Well, I guess if she's not on, I can take a swing at it.
Yeah, I don't see her on the meeting yet.
Okay. Well, I will put up some slides here and give a quick rundown of our project.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Thank you for your time, board, and just presenting on behalf of Corvallis Municipal Airport. The project that they are proposing is to construct some hangar taxi lanes and also complete some airport pavement maintenance. This project also, like you've heard on other presentations, is leveraging the FAA dollars as much as we can, maximize the Connect Oregon funds for putting towards the FAA improvement projects. Where it's currently set up is, and I say currently because there is potential that we could reduce, like the last bullet point, potential to reduce the ask to just fully match the 90%. But the 800,000 was really to encapsulate all of the pavement maintenance on the airfield that is really needed, in addition to the hangar taxi lane portions of the work. So the first focus of the project, we've started the environmental already for getting the hangar taxi lane development underway. It's been our target is to be complete by 2026 on the environmental portion of the hangar taxi lane work, and then also maintaining critical pavements on the airfield. PCI ranges from 57 to 74 on all the areas where pavement maintenance will be occurring. Pavement maintenance is kind of your typical pavement maintenance, crack seal and seal coat application, and then followed up with pavement markings once the new seal coat's been applied. Like I mentioned, if not selected, the project scope would likely be reduced and just putting, just taking the bill funds and applying it towards hangar taxi lanes. The reduction portion really, which it's an easy thing to scale, would be the pavement maintenance side of things. So that can increase or decrease based on available funds. Next slide. So this is just going to give you an overview of the project in general. The red area would be constructing new taxi lanes, and really that's getting through the environmental and building the taxi lanes, as well as the stormwater treatment facility to handle the new impervious surfaces. So that's the red and green, and then the blue area would be all the existing taxi lane pavements going through and getting our crack seal and seal coat applied to those areas. The 57 is largely through these hangar taxi lane areas for PCI, and then a little bit better out on the airfield. On the next slide, of some of the taxiways, parallel taxiways to each runway are in the 60s to 74. Either way, it's they're both in need of maintenance and critical to get that pavement preserved to continue to serve Corvallis and the region. A couple points back on my initial slide. The airport has been in talks with the hangar development. There are interests from businesses, avionics business, to expand their business by building a hangar. So that's been in the talks since the application has been input. So there's kind of been an increased focus. And there is a waiting list for hangars to be occupied, and definitely interest from local potential developers to build some hangars on the new taxi lines. That's about all I had, and I can entertain any questions you've got.
I wanted to mention Lisa Sheriff. You have access to your mic and camera if you'd like to unmute and share.
Thank you, and my apologies for I would say being late, but I didn't think I was late. I thought I had time to go get a cup of coffee. Yes, I did want to emphasize that since we submitted our application, we've had serious interest from an existing business on the field who would like to expand and hire employees for their business, but lack of hangar space is preventing that. And in fact, lack of taxi lane area to build new hangars is preventing that. Where I don't know, because I joined just a little bit late through Josh's presentation, whether he mentioned that the pavement maintenance, keeping our facilities in a state of good repair is key to the state's emergency management plan. Our airport is identified in that plan because it's accessing 99W and not I-5 and has fewer vulnerable facilities like bridges. In my conversations with the state's emergency management planner, he is interested in Corvallis, the Corvallis Airport, as a resilience asset. So those are just things I wanted to add that weren't captured in the application.
Very good. Thank you so much. We appreciate your presentation. Any questions?
Chair, I'll go ahead and ask this. We have a little sidebar. It says in your slide here that's up, you mentioned that you mentioned the environmental has been initiated, but it's not been completed. And generally, for projects probably at this stage in the process, I would have expected environmental to be completed. Can you comment on that, or at what point in the process are you?
Josh, did you want to comment on that, or did you want me to do that?
Sure, yeah. We're at the point of going through our field studies. We've done the wetlands surveys, and as I think this group is well aware with the NIMS process, we're diving into the National Marine Fisheries biological assessment review process currently. So we haven't submitted that yet, but that's pending.
Okay.
Jim, did you have a question?
I did. Could you help us understand that relationship between the airport and the private developers? In your application, you've stated that, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's private developers who want to build the hangars. Are they owners of aircraft, or are they real estate developers? And either way, what would happen if you're not able to get the grant? Would the private developers still want to participate in some way to help with the construction of the taxiway?
I would say they are not speculators. They're not real estate speculators. They are either aircraft owner and or business owners who support aircraft that are on the field and are interested.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
That helps a lot. That was you got the gist of my question, so I appreciate it very much.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your presentations.
Thank you.
Next up is City of Roseburg, and Ryan Herrings was originally scheduled to present, but had a conflict, so making this.
I do not see Ryan Henrik in the chat. Oh,
Yes, Ryan is not going to be presenting, it'll be Nikki, and I did see her on earlier.
She's got her hand up.
Oh, that's her.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the name? I can look in the
Yes,
chat. I can barely hear.
It's Nikki Messenger.
Oh, okay. I do see her right here, and I'm allowing her as a presenter.
Oh, great, thank you.
Hi, Nikki. Go ahead. You have access for microphone and camera abilities.
I am trying.
We can hear you.
You can hear me. It's telling me it can't access my camera. That's interesting. Let's
We have you as
see.
presenter. Maybe go ahead and try again. Oh, there we go. We can see you.
You can see me. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see how we do here. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
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 Looks
Okay,
great.
this is very weird because I can't see it on your screen. So here we go. Thank you, everybody. Nikki Messenger I'm the city manager for City of Roseburg, here to talk to you about the Taxiway A extension at the Roseburg Regional Airport. We really aren't talking about starting a project. We're talking about finishing a project. So just really quickly, we did receive a Connect Oregon 3 grant in around 2010 or 11 to extend our runway from an additional 400 feet, which put us just a little over 5,000 feet, included a blast pad and wetland mitigation. We had intended at that time to construct the taxiway to match as well, but we ran into a speed bump with the FAA, who introduced us to a new obstruction within our runway object-free area, for which we'd had a long-term design exception. So that depleted the funding that was supposed to go to the taxiway as we worked through how to remove that obstruction. Since that time, we've gone through the process of updating our master plan, which justified the existing new runway length of 5,000 feet. And that allowed us to put the taxiway extension into our AIP planning. The FAA funded the environmental and design component, which we have completed. We have gone to bid. They funded construction, they programmed construction in this current fiscal year. And then they came along about October and said, oh, we don't think we have enough money. And then they came back in December and said, well, we might have enough money. We want you to go to bid. And so we have done that, and we are close to getting that grant offer. The project itself is to extend that taxiway to match that runway. So an additional 400 feet, 35 feet of paved surface with two 10-foot shoulders, removing the existing taxiway Alpha 2, under drains. It does require a retaining wall and a blast fence, because if you can see that in the photo there, we're really close to Aviation Drive, and right across the street is the Home Depot parking lot. So we will have a blast fence for those jets making the turn to get to the runway. Signage and lighting and other incidentals with the project. So, whoops. When we talk about project readiness, our project is ready. We have got it in our airport master plan, our approved CIP. We have done the NEPA categorical exclusion that was completed January of 2022, design completed in 23, and we opened bids May 16th, just almost 2 months ago now. We did that under 120-day bid hold while we wait for FAA to decide and make sure we had grant funding. So we know our costs, they are higher than what we had put in the grant application, but we are not asking for an increased amount in that grant. In the right of the slide, you can see the funding breakdown, a federal share of just over $2 million. We're asking Connect Oregon for the $172,222 and a little under $60,000 in airport funds. So that gives us almost a 93% match on the project. The economic benefits were really identified as part of that runway expansion. To fully realize those, we need our larger corporate clients to be able to utilize that entire runway and not lose what they may lose if they're having to back taxi. It's both a safety issue, and it doesn't realize the full benefits of that runway expansion until we can get the taxiway expanded as well. So
We're ready to go. Happy to answer any questions you may have about our application.
All right, thank you. You actually answered one of my questions, which is, are you having to back taxi? So that is a safety issue for sure. So yeah, thank you for explaining that to us. Any other questions from board members? I think we're good. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today.
All right, thank you.
Great. We will keep moving along at our brisk pace.
Next, we have Patricia Newton with Eugene Airport.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Perfect. The Eugene Airport, this project here for Concourse A seating expansion and the egress ramp is part of a larger expansion that we're needing to do, eventually leading to a new Concourse C. For revenue reasons, we've decided to break it up into 3 projects, this one being the first to expand this terminal and allow for more passengers here. Then we'll be moving into a baggage system, a new inline baggage system, working with TSA, and then finally looking at that Concourse C build out. My name is Patricia Newton. I'm the Assistant Airport Director at the Eugene Airport. And since our record year of 2019, we've seen an over 40% increase in passengers. Concourse A is currently at or above capacity, having been built for regional jets. And in the past few years, airlines have been changing those jets out for larger mainline aircraft. This increases the number of passengers in the terminal at one time when they're arriving or departing. At peak times, the seating areas are full and the passengers are either standing or sitting on the floor. This project will add considerable seating to Concourse A along with ADA modifications. Eugene's project will have an economic impact on the surrounding area by allowing additional passengers, goods, and services to travel through the airport. We're very early in design, and as you can see on this rendering here, this is where our walkway currently is. So this entire area here will be the new seating area. Why it's not moving forward.
You could try stop sharing and then share it again.
Oh, okay.
Can you exit back to where you just were? We saw the second slide when you had all 3 of them up.
Yeah. Oh, there.
Yes,
Well,
we
maybe,
can see.
okay, maybe I'll just work from here.
Yeah.
All right, this project reduces transportation costs and enhances job accessibility through several means. By expanding the terminal and enhancing ADA accessibility, the project contributes to smoother airport operations. And that efficiency leads to more reliable flight schedules, reduced delays, and ultimately lower transportation costs for businesses who rely on air travel for their goods and services. The seating expansion in Concourse A allows for more passengers to be accommodated comfortably. With a larger terminal capacity, airlines will be incentivized to offer more flights, leading to increased competition and reduced airfares for travelers. More accessible and efficient airport can attract more business to operate the region and leads to more job creation. We're reducing the current congestion will help retain our passengers that might opt to drive to Portland's new airport, increasing congestion on I-5 and adding additional greenhouse gases. So as you can see up here, this is a very, very high level rendering of what it could look like. Right now, you come up through the escalator, turn and walk this way into the gate areas. By bumping that wall out and adding all this seating, we'll be able to accommodate a whole lot more passengers. And as you can see here, this is a list of components of this project. There'll be not only the additional seating, but there's the ADA egress ramp for safety. We'll put in new flooring so that people in wheelchairs can use it more easily. Provide a sensory room for people with sensory issues. Adding an all-user restroom. There's restroom updates to the A-gate restrooms right here. And we'll put additional signing upgrades and a changing table in the family restroom and HVAC upgrades. So over here, if you're looking, this is our current walkway into the A gates. And as you can see, the seating area that we're putting in here is almost the same size as that. So it's gonna provide a lot more seating for folks. Here's the ADA ramp going in, the gender neutral bathroom and a sensory room. So this will really help passengers. And I wanted to say, although Eugene has put in a grant for 13.5 million, any amount would assist us because anything that is put into this will help reduce our rates, keep them competitive in our region and affordable for our airline partners and passengers and concessionaires. The project physically increases the space available within the airport, allowing for more passengers to be accommodated simultaneously. The addition of the ADA egress ramp improves the flow of passengers, reduces bottlenecks and congestion, and by streamlining that passenger movement, it maximizes the efficiency of the existing infrastructure. The project's overall focus on ADA compliance ensures that passengers with disabilities have better access to airport facilities and services and increases the overall accessibility and safety of our airport. Thank you for your time. Oh, I did want to mention, we are applying for an FAA ATP grant, and those usually come in if you are awarded it between 25 and 30% of the project. So we're hoping to get that. And again, I'd just like to stress that we're not stuck on that 13.5 million. Any amount awarded would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Patricia. Question?
Patricia, obviously working with an existing building, is any of this project and the funding code requirements to meet ADA or to meet seismic resiliency? I mean, obviously when you're marrying up two buildings, is part of this project also going to address some of that?
Well, the ADA definitely will be helping that out with multiple parts of this project. Seismic upgrades, I'm sure that the new component will have that. I don't know about the actual terminal or Concourse A, if the seismic is being addressed there. I think that's going to be a separate project. But the part being put together will definitely have seismic looked at.
Thank you.
Question from Jim.
Patricia, I don't have a question for you. I just have a compliment. This was really a well-done presentation and a really well-done grant request. And I appreciate the hard work and labor that went into this. It was enjoyable to read. It was just organized quite well. So I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions? Hey, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next one.
But I see that it's Jed Crother. Is there anybody online that's covering for Jed Crother? Because I do not see him logged in.
Anybody?
If you are filling in for him, just raise your hand and then Holly can make you presenter.
Looking through the chats and I don't see anybody.
We're also early.
Yeah, we are.
If Jed decides to join, we can add him towards the end or when he
Sure.
pops in. We can move on to Judy Irwin and Haley Walker. I do see that we do have them available. Haley Walker's available.
Okay.
Good morning, Haley.
Good morning. I'm back. It's been less than an hour. Y'all are moving right along, doing good work.
All right.
Andrea has the presentation there.
Yes, just one moment. Almost there.
Please stand by, everybody. Oh,
Perfect.
we can see it.
There it is.
Yes.
Excellent. So I'll just go ahead and get started if y'all are ready. Can you hear me just fine? So the wave of the future in aviation, I'm sure we're all getting used to this, is unmanned aviation systems. So the city of Burns has a UAS test range infrastructure and development project. The purpose of the project is to enhance the infrastructure at the airport to support the development and testing of unmanned aviation systems in a remote private location with very few flight operations. The objectives of the project are to improve safety and operational efficiency, foster innovation and research in UAS technologies, support UAS commercial and government applications, including military defense and manufacturers. Also to develop and grow UAS operations in the Burns UAS test range. And just to note, the FAA has already approved a certificate of authorization, and that was done in January of this year. So the project scope involves design and engineering to ensure development aligns with FAA standards, construction of dedicated UAS testing areas, such as 3 concrete launch pads, 3 gravel launch pads for safe launching and landing, high-speed internet at each launch pad for data transmission. That's a key piece of it. Power at each launch pad for charging and powering drones and related equipment, and water at each launch pad. Also, in the future, we're looking at additional airport support facilities and maintenance hangars. So thank you. Next slide. Some of the benefits and impact of this UAS project in Burns is economic stimulation, specifically post-project construction. So we know that we'll get attraction and retention of UAS industry investments locally, regionally, and statewide. We also know that with a dedicated testing facility, UAS businesses in aerospace, technology, and research sectors can conduct testing and research within Oregon rather than seeking those facilities into other states and countries for that matter. We know that jobs will be created in construction, operations, technology sectors, and local hospitality businesses. We also know that this project will provide much needed revenue diversity for the Burns Airport. Another benefit is technological advancement. So providing a platform for cutting edge UAS research and enhancing collaboration between academia, industry, and government. And lastly, community and safety. So we anticipate this project will improve public safety to meet the escalating demand for UAS research development and training through controlled testing environments. Last slide, please. So the funding requirements and call to action for this project. So we have a projected total project cost of $425,000, a request to Connect Oregon of $297,500, and matching funds from the local city budget there. So we look the use of funds. We're looking at $296,500 for infrastructure construction, $117,500 for design, engineering, permitting, and administration, and we have an $11,000 budget for contingency. The next steps after securing grant funding, finalize partnerships with our engineer and construction contractor, begin construction, and we also anticipate launching a public awareness and education campaign. We're looking at starting this project October 31st of this year and ending the project July 31st, 2026. There is, again, a buffer in there for construction and securing those contracts and, of course, the design and engineering. Hopefully that covered the project, but definitely willing to take any questions. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions?
I don't see any online. Jim or Jen.
Thanks. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Right, we're about an hour into this meeting and we're quite ahead of schedule. I'm wondering if anybody would like a 10-minute break.
Sure.
And then we'll come back at it. Okay. So Holly, to come back at 11:15.
That sounds great. We'll see everybody.
Can anybody hear me right now? And I need to talk to Holly as soon as possible.
I can hear you, Steve. Or I mean, Jim, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So the last organization, the Arlington Airport, not Arlington, but Jed Crowther was online, and they simply can't hear anybody, and they thought that they were not scheduled until 11:25. So that's why they're not there. And I don't have Holly's cell phone number, so I can't call her to tell her that they're ready to go and have been ready to go. They just simply could not hear what's been going on for whatever that reason is. So I think that they're ready to do a presentation when they could be squeezed in.
Yeah, Jim, I bring that up to Holly when she comes back online, and you could also probably drop something in the chat, just a quick message.
Yeah, I can't, for some reason I can't chat because I'm somehow I'm logged in as a visitor, except for obviously I'm not. And I can't, let's see if I can get a chat going with her.
Who is it?
So it's Jed Crowther, and it is the one that we tried to listen to them, but they couldn't get it. Oh, they're not even on the list. 11:25, the Linus Pauling Field Fuel and Storage, Jed Crowther. So he's scheduled for 11:25. So he was supposed to be right after Eugene, but obviously we took that break.
Does that work?
Does what work?
I just put something in the chat.
Oh.
I said, Holly, Jed Crowler is online and ready to go if possible. This is coming from Jim. They thought they were scheduled for 11:25.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't. I'm not getting the chat information. It's because of the classification as an attendee, and I'm a visitor, and I'm not, obviously I'm on the board, but I'm not able to do a chat.
Hey, Jeff, this is Zach from Redmond. I can see that, what you posted.
Okay. Yep. Looks like Port of Arlington. Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Looks like
we
I
are ready
misspelled
to.
Jim's last name. My bad.
All right. So, Holly, I happen to know the folks. I happen to know the folks at Linus Field, and Jed Crowther and Catherine were both online, waiting for their turn, and they thought that they were not supposed to be on until 11:25. So.
Oh yes, I see the schedule is marked, but we are ahead of time.
I wanted them to get your number, but I don't have your cell phone number, so I can't get back in touch with them, except I can call Catherine and let them know that they're ready. That might be helpful.
Yes, please, if you can.
Yeah,
Or Andrea, if you have their contact info as well.
I just gave presenter to Catherine Greiner. I just gave her presenter option.
Yeah, there we go.
Catherine, can you hear us or can you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you.
Woohoo!
Okay.
It's working. Yeah.
Sorry about that. We thought we were on at 11:25. So
Yeah, we're just ahead of schedule. So yeah, it's okay. We're glad to have you now.
So if you want, do you want us to start now? Do you have the slides?
Yes, I'm just getting your presentation up. Just one moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
Have we been called back to order?
Yeah, we're back in order. We just.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks, Jim. We are ready to begin.
Okay, I'm going to let Jed start.
Okay. Our application is for a fuel storage and sales at the Linus Pauling Field. We recognize that the scoring criteria was primarily for other positive points, and so ours did not score as highly. But with that, we want to make clear what value it brings to the state. And on the second slide, the primary things I want to emphasize are location, availability, and local investment. In the flight world, our regional location is critical to response for emergencies, including fires. We have another slide that'll tell about the Cascadia subduction event. But having fuel available in a fabulous runway, a 3,500-foot runway, state-owned, with the legwork done to have contracts by the state to provide that. And the other benefit we have is a local match that would make this happen. Those are the three primary strengths that we see for our application and in that partnership with state aviation. Catherine, do you want to share some of maybe the next slide, please?
Yeah, one of the main reasons too that Jed brought up is that we are going to be one of the tier 1 airports that if the Cascadia subduction hits, that according to your report that the Department of Aviation gave to the legislature in December of 23, is Linus Pauling Field is a tier 1. They figure it's going to be 1 to 2 days to be up and running. We're going to have minimal issues with our runways and anything else. So the priority is having fuel there for recovery efforts after the Cascadia subduction. What it's requiring in the report is fuel storage, communication, cargo processing, and storage areas. The city of Condon and Gillum, who I am the city administrator of Gillum, city of Condon, and I'm also a Port of Arlington commissioner, is we have the equipment to do the cargo processing. We have storage. It's right next to the fairgrounds. The fuel is going to be required for helicopters and other planes to go once the other airports on the west side of the mountain is available to drop supplies in. The last thing too is one of the big things we have too at this airport that the fuel is also going to do after the Cascadia is communications. The city of Condon and Gillum County are part of Frontier Telenet, that is a emergency communication system that is run by wireless, and they have backup generators at all their sites. So we could be up and going immediately then too. I think those are the ones I have. And I want to reiterate just Jed's is that we realized that this scored extremely low due to the fact, but we also think that it's the best bang for the buck with our local match. Do we have any questions?
All right, thank you. Any questions from board members?
I did have one question where it states that ODAV will be responsible for maintenance and taking over this facility. There wasn't actually a letter from ODAV supporting this application. And I guess maybe it's more of a statement than a question, that I wish that had been in there so I would more fully understand how ODAV's budget could accommodate this for future use.
Yeah, we met with Tony Beach here on site with a lot of local aviators, and he lined out developed a draft agreement for that operation by the state because it's state owned, and that's how it would need to be governed and administered, that fuel. And there's a pathway to do that. I recognize it would have been stronger with a support letter from him, but we've got the pathway started with him on that.
Okay, thanks for answering that.
Tony, did you want to add something?
Yeah, this is Tony Beach, and thank you. We do support this project.
when we met with the city of Condon, we discussed FBO, our minimum standards requirements for an FBO, and determined that the best option here would be for the state to provide the fuel and maintain the system like we do at our Joseph and Cottage Grove state airports, rather than creating a FBO business and meeting those standards at Condon. But we do support the project.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Any other questions from board members? Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to the next one.
Next up is Medford and Brian Gephardt.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Brian. Yes, we can.
Okay.
And Brian, I'm just getting your slideshow up. Just one moment.
All right. Thank you. The purpose of our project is to bring additional capacity and improved circulation for large aircraft parking on the east apron at Medford here. That way we could, such as 3 very large air tankers and 1 large cargo aircraft, such as an Antonov or a C-5 operating independently and in conjunction with each other. We just finished phase 1 of our project, which allows the east apron to accommodate 3 large aircraft at a time, but has limited additional capacity for cargo during a fire event. Can I get the next slide, please? The expansion provides an additional parking position for a very large cargo aircraft and the circulation route. In this diagram, the highlighted red square is the addition, I guess it's a blue square. There we go. It is the additional large aircraft parking position that would be used for the ability to park that large cargo aircraft. The yellow highlighted area adjacent is the additional asphalt surface that would complete the circulation route. And finally, the blue represents the additional shouldering to widen the circulation route back to the taxiway. Next slide, please. I guess this is phase, there we go, thank you. The Oregon Resilience Plan identifies the Medford Airport as a category 1, tier 1 airport. This is critical for this region. After a catastrophic event, the Medford Airport would be a reliable hub to deliver critical supplies, emergency equipment, and personnel to this region. This project will increase efficiency and capacity of the resilient response the Medford Airport is able to provide. We believe that this project directly affects Oregon's ability to respond in the aftermath of a Cascadia subduction earthquake, fire events, and severe weather, anytime the supply chain is minimized or broken. Do we have any questions?
Any questions?
I don't see
I don't see any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate your presentation today, Brian. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.
Great. Next up.
We have Tony Beach, Oak Ridge Airport runway rehabilitation. Hi, Tony.
Hi, okay, I can share my screen. Andrea, I also sent the presentations to you, but I think I can share.
We did it together, though.
Yes.
We went to the together mode. Not sure how that happened.
It's like a nice forest around.
Yeah.
Right, we're all just sitting around the campfire. Okay, can you all see my my screen here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Try to go full screen mode here. Okay, So this application is for the Oak Ridge State Airport Runway Rehabilitation Project. And the Oak Ridge Airport connects the rural community in the Central Oregon Cascade Mountain Range to the National Air Transportation System. It's heavily used for wildfire staging and operations. And in the last 4 years, the airport has been used as a helibase for 236 days. This airport also serves as a vital alternate landing site for in-flight emergencies where landing options are limited due to the area's mountainous terrain. And this airport does not receive federal funds. After more than 60 years, this runway is at its end of life. After 60 years of maintenance, this airport was constructed in 1961, and then ownership was transferred by the timber companies that built it to the Department of Aviation in 1967. And the runway at this airport was not designed or built to accommodate the current or the type of use that's present at the airport, especially with the extent of the heavy helicopters and support equipment for firefighting operations. So this slide just shows some photos to show the extent of the use at the airport and all of the support equipment and heavy lift helicopters that go into a helibase operation. And what we're seeing after each season, because the runway was not designed or built for this type of use, we're seeing pavement failures, and we're trying to keep all of the equipment and helicopters off of the pavement. But what we're having to do is at the conclusion of the event, we're having to go back in and repair where the pavement has failed. These are Band-Aids. This is in some places the surface is just inches thick, and so that's why we're seeing the failures that we see at the bottom part of this slide. So what we're really concerned about is if bigger failure were to occur, then we're not in a position to make bigger repairs or fully rehabilitate the runway pavement out of our own funding. And if we cannot keep this airport open and operational, then the property in our deed, it reverts to the previous owners. So we do not want to lose this vital resource for the rural community and for the whole central region of Oregon that relies on this for firefighting. So we are proposing to rehabilitate the full width and length of the runway, as well as the connecting taxiway to the apron, and then grading the safety area for improved drainage. And we are looking to install solar-powered wind cone, and we expect that the pavement life will exceed 20 years and 40 years with maintenance. Our total cost of this project is $2.6 million. We're asking from Connect Oregon just under $1.8 million, and our matching share from the Department of Aviation is $841,000. Any questions on this project?
Thank you, Tony. So should you not receive this funding, I know you've already tried for other funding sources, but what are the options? Because I know you've been not successful with a couple of other grant opportunities. So what happens if you don't get the Connect Oregon funding?
If we don't get Connect Oregon funding, we do not have sufficient funding to complete this project out of our local pot of funds, which is primarily our SOAR funding. It could take years for us with no other projects happening to put the funding together. And of course, we will continue to seek other funding opportunities because this project is so important for us.
Okay, thank you. And I think Jeff has a question for you.
Yes. A question, Tony. What happens if these repairs aren't made? At what point does this become a problem for this airport? And how close are we to that?
Yeah, so the pavement failures that I showed in the previous slide demonstrate that we're already having failure. And if we can't make
a full pavement rehab on this airport. What we're concerned about is bigger issues that we're not going to be able to make a repair or get this airport reopened, and it may have to sit closed for an extended amount of time. And that's hard to quantify. That the PCI is already very low for this airport, the pavement condition index. And that's what we're really trying to be proactive and avoid catastrophic failure.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions for Tony? Tony, I would just ask you, and I know you're not representing, Forest Service or firefighting operations, but I know the activity that happens on an annual basis in the summer and fall. Can you just detail that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, the airport has been used as a helibase each year in the last 4 years that I've been here, and then some of those events have exceeded 2 months in one stint, so 2 consecutive months where the airport's been closed for extensive wildfire fighting operations. And again, the total for the last 4 years is 236 days this airport's been set up as a helibase.
And then if the airport does close, if the runway has to close, where do those firefighting operations go?
So I don't know where they would go, but I do know that the specific location for this facility, located in the Central Oregon Cascade Mountain Range, in this rural community next to the lake, is ideal for them. That's why that they continue to use this airport as a resource. Just logistically, and the location of this facility allows for fairly efficient operations where they're able to get into the different areas of the region to address the fires that are happening out there.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Tony, you mentioned PCI. Do you have any of the PCI values representative of the current condition? I do. So 49, okay, so in 2019, the pavement evaluation report assessed the pavement condition index of the runway at the time to be between 19 severe and 49 poor. And that was 5 years ago. Thanks.
Nothing else? Then we move on to the next one, which is also Tony's.
Okay, changing gears. So our other application for Connect Oregon is for the Milano State Airport. And this is for a water line extension for fire suppression. And this airport is located less than 10 miles from Oregon City and within the Portland metro area. This airport also connects the local community to the national air transportation system. It supports local tourism and commerce, has on-airport businesses, including an FBO, which provides fuel sales, commercial hangar storage, and flight training. We also have an aircraft maintenance business on the airport and a major skydiving operation. Our 2019 master plan projects a need for future aviation businesses with the forecasted growth. And this airport is home to 62 based aircraft in 47 leased hangars and 16 tied-on spaces. That is at capacity. That is every hangar, storage, and tied-on space available at this airport. And we are losing some storage as one of the buildings was damaged in a windstorm event a couple of years ago, and is at its end of life, and the master plan calls for it to be removed anyway. So we're not able to make repairs to this building. So our capacity is going down from what we've had. The master plan forecasts demand for 34 additional based aircraft, requiring 36 new hangars over the next 10 to 15 years. We currently have a wait list for hangar space at Milano, but we cannot do new hangar development until access to fire suppression is improved. That is, the fire marshal will not permit or allow for any new construction at this airport until we can extend the access to fire suppression. So our project will replace approximately 4,000 linear feet of undersized water line with 8-inch ductile iron water main. It'll construct 8 new fire hydrants and reconnect 16 private services. The estimated project cost for this is just under $1.4 million. Our request for Connect Oregon is $948,000 with our local match $446,000, which is 32% match. Any questions on this project?
Thanks, Tony. This airport is in the NIPIAS, correct? So it does receive federal funding.
Correct. Who's supplying the water for this? This is the water is connected to the Watto, I believe it's a Milano Water District.
Any other questions for Tony? Okay, thank you, Tony. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great. So I know we're still running ahead of schedule, but we're going to keep plowing forward as long as we've got the folks online to present. So next one up.
Next up.
So it's Roger.
Yeah,
It's Roger Credit, but I don't see him online yet.
Okay.
Unless there's somebody else filling in for him as well. Please raise your hand or add your name to the chat, please. I don't see anybody.
I can reach out and give them a call, let them know that we're scheduled. But we can move next to PDX if Steve Winkle is on.
Hey, Steve Winkle. I don't see Steve up in the chat or online.
Okay, our last one is Andy Wood, Ontario, and I did see Andy's on. If you're ready, Andy, I can share your presentation and we can go ahead with you.
Andy.
Hand raise.
Andy, we see you trying to share. Did you have
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know if the camera works on this tab or this laptop, but that's why I sent through the presentation. So hopefully Andrea can pull that up and screen share it for me.
Yes, I'm getting it up right now. All right, you should see it up now.
Yep. Yeah, that looks great. Thank you. Yeah, so this purpose of this project is to finish the fence project that we started. So the west side development, you can see there, we started in 2023, was a 4,000 foot, 7-foot chain link fence. And we completed that job. And the remaining area that's left is the east side of the airport, which is around about 2,600 foot of 7-foot chain link fence. And the securing of the airport area with that part allows us to go into the further development of the east side. So stage one we've got is the expanding the jet apron, and that's due to start construction in fall. We have stage two, which is the access ways and utilities. So we have the BLM roadway, and all the utilities will be going in the fall construction period as well this year. And then we have stage 3, which is the request for the grant to finish the fence off on the east side and to provide the access gates to that area as well. So we're looking at a grant of 150,000 is what we're looking at to do the project, a grant request of 105, and then we will have matching funds from the City of Ontario for 45,000. Start date on this project can be an immediate start. We're all ready to go for it. Completion, we're aiming for the end of December, so we're trying to get it done before winter. The fourth stage is the new BLM seat base, and that's a $7 million project that's starting as well. And we're hoping to have that whole east side secured and protected for that development that we're looking at expanding into. So if we go to the next slide, there's a couple of nice colors there. So the blue area is the east side. The green within the east side is the new BLM seat base. And that is roughly around about 10.5 acres for the BLM. And then there's about 51 acres left on that east side to develop. So the fence that we're looking at putting in comes to the furthest east edge there. You can see the residential housing going back towards the to the left, where we have the weather station and everything at the far end corner there. So you've got, like I say, around about 2,600 foot of fencing and a couple of security gates to put in. So we're looking at that that sort of growth. And then the next slide has some pictures showing where we have adjusted the end of the workshop to allow for the roadway. And then it shows the existing 4-foot fence. And then the other picture has the big field that was the former golf course that has been in the ownership of the city for many years now. So there's no real delays with this project other than finding the grants to finish off the last bit of fencing around that area. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Questions? Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation.
Oh, I was going to ask,
Question?
are you facing any wildlife related issues as well, Andy, with this? And would this help resolve any?
Yes, yeah. What we've had on the west side was a lot of wildlife coming through there, so that's why that got put in pretty pronto, because we had deer coming through, and we've already had the fish and wildlife guys who do the vermin control for us. They've already captured one deer and a bunch of coyotes, and a lot of badgers and so forth. But on this east side, it's basically the border between the neighboring properties that used to have access to the old golf course. And so it's just more securing people from being able to walk onto the airport, because that's been the problem, is that people will walk through to cut the corner, and as such. So from a traffic point of view, opening up that east side will reduce a lot of the traffic that's currently coming down 4th Street, which is very congested. It sort of bottlenecks. And with the BLM moving their premises and all their road transport and everything will be coming more through Airport Way on 201. So it's a more direct access route. So it sort of opens up a lot of transport opportunities for reducing that congestion on 4th.
Right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, thank you so much. We very much appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. I do see Steve Winkle. He is on, and we are ready for you, Steve Winkle, for PDX Air Trans Center.
Great. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just need 1 second and share my screen. That's good.
Probably in a second. Maybe
I don't
we'll-
see anything yet.
Okay. Hold on. How about now? There we are. Okay, great. Just dive right in. Is that
Yes,
okay?
go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, good afternoon, good morning. Yeah, I think it's still morning. My name's Steve Winkle. I'm the Senior Manager of General Aviation and Airside Properties at the Port of Portland. Thank you for this opportunity to allow me to present our proposed grant application today. This application requests support for expanding non-exclusive air cargo ramp facilities within the Air Trans Center at the Portland International Airport. This project is critical for expanding needed air cargo capacity, operational flexibility, and safety at the airport. The Air Trans Center at PDX is the primary air cargo hub in the state of Oregon. Imports and exports flow in and out via aircraft, facilitating trade, creating access to markets, jobs, and economic prosperity for Oregonians across the state. The air cargo area is currently constrained, and the proposed project adds one additional non-exclusive aircraft parking position for a wide-body cargo jet and supporting operations space. The image on the screen shows a busy aircraft ramp and the area proposed for expansion. This location was identified as one of the very few remaining undeveloped areas that could be utilized to expand air cargo operations. The project proposes to construct approximately 67,000 square feet of pavement area to create an additional wide-body parking position and support space. The addition creates capacity for approximately 68 additional air cargo flights per month, resulting in an additional 900 metric tons of cargo carrying capacity. The overall cost of this project is estimated at approximately $5.8 million, and the Port of Portland proposes to contribute $2.2 million or 38%. And is requesting Connect Oregon grant support in the amount of $3.6 million or 62%. If funded, the project planning would complete in 2025 and the ramp would be constructed and opened in 2026. This project will provide statewide benefit, expanding system capacity, employment, and economic development. PDX is the primary air cargo gateway for the state, providing Oregonians and Oregon-based businesses access to regional, national, and international markets. Some of the many unique Oregon products utilizing PDX include those produced by Nike, Adidas America, Columbia Sportswear, Intel, Tillamook Cheese, Oregon Fruits and Wines, Pendleton Blankets, and numerous other household names. The additional position will serve the community for decades to come and increases capacity by over 800 aircraft uses and 10,000 tons of additional air cargo capacity annually. Increased capacity and business activity can also create additional employment. It is estimated that full utilization could increase direct and indirect employment by approximately 95 jobs that carry an average wage of $75,133 per year. This project broadly strengthens the Oregon economy and air cargo within the state, enabling Oregon shippers to export their often time-sensitive, high-value goods. The additional non-exclusive ramp creates space for additional operations that can unlock export potential of up to $1 billion annually. Thank you. At this time, I think I could take any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Questions?
Let's build, your other infrastructure is going to be able to handle the extra load of an additional parking space? The increased load? What becomes the bottleneck now?
You know, I am not certain. We haven't modeled any additional bottleneck capacity constraints. I know that we have plenty of airspace capacity and we have good solid connections for the roadway capacity. I would say probably, if I'm speculating here, the biggest constraint that we're facing these days is the limited real estate. We're
in the AirTran Center, essentially like 97% fully built out. So that's why this particular spot is so attractive as well. It's one of the very, very few spots that's left available in the air cargo area to develop.
You believe you have enough footprint in the warehouse to handle the additional cargo that this is going to bring?
Yes, we do.
Jim has a question.
Yeah, actually, I've got two questions. Let me ask them both, and then you can address them in either order that you'd like. The first one is I didn't see any traffic impact reports or acknowledgement of if this does go through, it would increase. I mean, with the volume that you're talking about of increasing cargo, wouldn't that also increase truck traffic just bringing cargo to the new facility or leaving cargo? And what will be that impact? The other question is a little more concerning, is that a significant importance on if this is not funded, that you very well may lose customers as large as Amazon. And I'm awfully curious, is that a real concern? Have you received some notifications that said, boy, if we don't get this thing built, we're out of here? So I'm not trying to be dramatic, but that was a pretty important part of the application, is kind of the fear of if we don't build it, we're going to lose what we have. So
Sure.
I think it'd be helpful if you could address those two issues.
Yeah, I think I'll take the threat of lost business first, just because that is really a strong issue that we struggle with continually. If you rewound 10 years ago, we had lots of capacity in the air cargo center, but with the boom of e-commerce in particular, that then was supercharged by changing buyer behaviors when everybody was home with COVID, ordering everything online. We are at a point where every single bit of ramp gets utilized on, in the system, and we don't have any additional space to where when we go to recruit a new carrier, for example, which this happens, and it's not necessarily something we could say will happen tomorrow. It happens intermittently. We have an air service development department that goes out and recruits service. But it used to be, we used to be able to say, yes, oh, we have space for you, we could put you here. At this point, it's like we're starting to say, well, if you come on Tuesday between these hours and this hour, we could put you over here. We don't have a consistent area to be able to market for a new entrant. Would we lose existing volume? No, I think our existing volume is safe, but we constrain the growth of any of these operators. And when you talk about like a FedEx, UPS, or Amazon, would they exit the market? I don't think so, because they don't really have any alternatives anywhere else to go, really. So what we face really is just the limitation to recruit new entrants to take on incremental growth capacity. And then we also face the operational challenges too, where we don't really have flexibility to move folks around. Some of these surfaces are starting to age, and we have construction projects coming up too, where we're going to have to rehab certain portions of ramp. And we're already, kind of scratching our heads, where do we put these folks? Where do we move their operations and their aircraft while we're rebuilding the ramp that they use every day? So having an additional spot will provide a very, very necessary relief valve as part of the equation, as well as one of the benefits. Regarding the traffic impact, additional cargo will bring additional traffic to the area. That's probably a given, a certainty. I could not really speak to the modeling for that. That's one I'd have to take offline and get back with you, if that's okay.
Great, thanks. I appreciate your comments.
Right, I think, looks like Jeff has a question.
Yeah, hopefully this will be a quick question. So with the increase capacity, what type of capacity for fuel storage or fuel needs are there going to be by adding additional trips and aircrafts to the Portland airport? I didn't see any talk about that, but is that going to be a challenge in the future?
I would say no. Our, the signatory carriers, which would be the users of said facility, they have a large fuel consortium facility that they're expanding currently. I think that they're doubling the volume. So, and a lot of the cargo operators don't really take on a ton of fuel. The fueling is not a main component in Portland typically for them. But yeah, the fuel will not be a capacity constraint for us at all.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Great. I have a question for you, and that is, could you talk a little bit about the cargo business model, and do the carriers have some responsibility to contribute to the infrastructure?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes. So the business model is such that typically the arrangement is the airport provides the access. We do the runways, taxiways, and traditionally we've also provided the ramps, the actual operators, whether they self-develop or they work with a developer, have typically done ground leases and developed their own facilities and made their investments there. Sorry, what was the rest of that?
Do the carriers have a responsibility or some part of the responsibility to build the infrastructure?
Yeah, so I guess their responsibility is typically limited to the facilities, the actual warehouses, and the ground lease capacities. They essentially manage the ramps, the aircraft ramps for the port. So their agreement is that they're ramp managers for the port, and they pay a portion of money for the ground lease where they have their facilities. They pay fees for the ramp portion as well, and then they also pay landing fees in addition to for using the airfield.
I see Jim has his hand up again.
Yeah, just a kind of a tag on and follow up is that what's plan B with the competition so heavy in Connect Oregon grants? Do you have a strategy or a plan to kind of, along with the former comments about, would the tenants participate in some way? I mean, it's such I see the need clearly of how important this is, to the level of, wow, what if we don't get the grant, or what if we only get a portion of the grant, but the need still exists and you want to take good care of the customers? Well, is there a backup plan?
That's a great question, and it's a challenging situation because ramp is a very difficult asset to build. I would say it's kind of like roadways in a way. You don't necessarily have a one user pay for all of it, and it's really expensive to build. When we do cost benefit analysis on it, it typically will not pencil without grant funding, and that's why it isn't built yet today. Plan B is probably to operate in a constrained fashion. There are other the port does get other grant support through the FAA, but unfortunately, this type of development is very, very far down the list. Runways, taxiways, terminals, those generally take the priorities and consume all the dollars. So incremental ramp expansion is not really a potential in funding for having that resolved as our plan B. So I would say that without grant funding, we're probably not able to construct this, and that's why it's not yet constructed. And we would continue to operate in a constrained fashion until such time we could find and secure some grant funding to help build this expensive but valuable asset.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your direct response.
Yeah.
I just have a follow-on for that is, do you receive cargo entitlements? And then is it because of the priority, how the FAA allocates funding, is why it wouldn't go to a cargo?
So I'll have to take that one offline. I know that we don't get specific FAA air cargo entitlements. You generally get your entitlements for your airport based on the size, and there happens to be a couple of buckets, and the Port of Portland participates. Get a certain like slice of the pie for that, but it's not specific to air cargo, and that's why it doesn't generally garner grant funds specifically for air cargo. It competes with the runways, the taxiways, the terminal, etc.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. We really appreciate your presentation, your time today.
Great. Thank you, guys. Bye.
I do see that Roger Craddock with Southwest Oregon Airport apron reconstruction. His presentation, he's ready, and and we could see you just fine. We just need you to unmute.
Right. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes, should be able to.
Well, unfortunately, it's not allowing me on this end. So why don't I just, essence of time, share what we have here.
Would you like to email any of us your presentation? Email Andrea. Andrea, would you like to pull it up or?
If you want to, we can definitely do that. Roger, if you want to email it over, I could share it on my end. That's totally fine.
It says it's too large as an attachment. I will, I'll figure out a way to share it and send it over to you. It will be shared with the group. Basically what we have, one of the remnants of the old World War II airport is a taxiway or an apron that was built in, actually poured in 1944. It's a 300,000 square foot apron. It was designed at that time to handle World War II planes and for blimps. That is one of the remaining pieces of infrastructure that's left from the World War II airport. Amazingly, it's held up this long. Amazing because in some places it's only 4 inches thick. It has no rebar, and it was poured on sand. But planes are much heavier today than they were back in World War II, and it is showing where, in fact, parts of it have crumbled, and we replaced a few blocks of cement. We're currently embarking, beginning next month, to replace, I believe it's 23,000 square feet of it. The total cost to replace the entire 300,000 square feet is estimated to be about $23 million. We know that's not possible to do it all at one time, so we're taking it in chunks. We did have about $3 million in discretionary dollars from FAA secured, but unfortunately FAA has changed their criteria, and they're focusing mainly on runways and taxiways, and aprons are no longer allowed. This apron serves not only most of our GA traffic, it handles Reach Air Medical, Coast Guard uses it, but it's heavily used by our tourism draw that goes to Bandon Dunes. Bandon Dunes, world-class golf. I believe they have 8 courses now. They have 1,300 employees. We receive at least 1,000 golfers commercially every month, and then somewhere around 1,300 to 1,400 general aviation visits with jets that go down there. So it's extremely important to us. It's also used by UPS, FedEx, and our local customers. What we're hoping to do is do this in chunks. And we're really hoping to get Connect Oregon grant to assist us in doing so. Absence of that, it's going to be difficult to replace it. We have other needs that we need our AIP dollars for, extension or correcting a runway safety area, moving a glide slope, pavement management of our existing runways and such. So it'll be years before we have the funds, absent some grant funds, to actually work on this ramp, or excuse me, apron. With that, I'd be happy to entertain questions. I guess the one thing I'd share is that our current phase one will be, we're spending about 1.8 billion of our funds on that now.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Roger, this is Steve. Just, I may have missed it, but I asked this question of others. Do you have the PCI values for that part of the ramp now?
We did get on our report, and it indicated that it was in need of being replaced. I mean, we have some failures in it right now. But I don't have at my disposal the exact number on the PCI index.
Okay, no, thank you.
Any other questions? Very good. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for providing the time for me. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Roger.
Is all of the presentations. I know that
Kristen Forrest
So
doing a presentation.
if I may, since we're a little bit ahead of schedule, we have a little bit of extra time. John, Warren from ODOT, if you're available, would you mind talking with, this is, I think the first time for maybe all but one or two of us that have gone through the Connect Oregon process. So you got a few minutes to just talk with us about the Connect Oregon process, talk about some of the things that maybe the board should consider going through this and the ranking, and
no, appreciate the opportunity to speak, provide a little context, and be here if there's any procedural questions kind of come up now or later. So this is as I discussed a few months ago, this is a multimodal process. So this group here is focused on the aviation projects, but we had different groups meet on the marine projects, the rail projects, and then our freight advisory committee met yesterday and gavelled down on their top rate freight related projects. This is actually the last group to meet. We've had a number of our ODOT regions meet, and so those are comprised of area commissions and transportation that have county commissioners, mayors, figures within those communities representing kind of the geography that they've come in and ranked. So the scale of the program this cycle is 46.5 million, and after projects have kind of come in and out, we're oversubscribed by about 2 to 1, so around $100 million in requests. So you figure that about half the amount that's being requested could be funded. And that translates kind of to the exercise this group is about to do, is that you're going to rank projects 1 through 15, that it's probably the top 7, 8, maybe 9 that could be funded. Once you get well below that, it is unlikely. Whereas if you're towards the top, it's probably seen positively by those other groups when it gets meshed together. The program is based on the statutory considerations, looking at how these projects, benefit the economy. Are they a critical link in the system? How do they move people or goods? Along with those other benefits. And something that's come up too is the project size and how that fits in. A project being large is neither good nor bad. Just that is, what is the benefit relative to its size? Sometimes you need to make a significant investment to get a large benefit. Sometimes you can get a significant benefit from a small investment. We also ask that reviewers take the applications as they are. There's so many moving parts as it is that any changes to applications need to have come from the applicant and need to have happened a while back. So I know there are some programs that allow for tweaking or downsizing the size or maybe the scale of a project, but we really ask you to kind of take the projects as they are in the application materials, but then as amplified in their presentations today, and go based on that, because once you get into potentially adjusting sizes, there's kind of an infinite number of ways that you could end up trying to formulate the list. Plus all the other groups have reviewed them in this manner, so it would be harder to compare them if it's not apples to apples. So before turning it back over to the aviation staff, for this discussion in your chair, one of the outcomes from this meeting beyond that list ranked 1 through 15, no ties, is that we are going to have our final review committee meeting, which takes this melded list, make sure we got it right, and we will need a representative to represent aviation, the aviation projects, and that that knowledge set. This meeting would be August 7th, probably a full day, 9 to 4, in person in Salem. But if it's a hardship, we would allow for virtual attendance. We would want a definitely at least one person, and then potentially one alternate if that person that has designated today is unable to make it due to some last minute emergency or something comes up. So with that, I turn it back to you if I have any questions or anything else I can help kind of clarify the process before you roll up your sleeves and start ranking.
John, can you just talk a little bit again about how to properly state conflict? I think we caught it early on before you were able to join, but I just want to make sure we're all good there before we move to the ranking stage.
Yeah, and apologies, wasn't able to make it the first part, but it's really to, as it pertains to conflict of interest, declare those, whether it's an actual, meaning you're on an application or your organization would, directly benefit, or potential if there's a connection that's somewhat nebulous. So, if you're a board member, we would ask that, if you have a project in the mix, that you be responsive to questions about that project, but not take on an advocacy role. Whereas you can be more probative when you're talking about other projects that are in the mix. How you think about them, their strengths or weaknesses, and that's I appreciate this prompt here too, because whoever the final review committee is, just a requirement in the statute is they can't have their agency organization can't have an application that is going before, because typically we would look to say the board chair or vice chair, but if there are conflicts there, then we would look to a board member that either is not part of an organization that has an application in this cycle.
I see Stacy turned her camera on. Stacy, you have something to add?
And Jim Knight also has his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. John, I am actually with DOJ. I'm the contact counsel for aviation. And this question came up for me 3 years ago, and I have been desperately searching for through our data stuff to try and remember the conversation that I had with the former chair about this. So I just have a question for you. In terms of conflicts, is this an ODOT specific conflict, or is this an ethics conflict? Because it seems like it's two different things.
There's, at the beginning of the process, just the standard ethics that's almost required of all meetings where money can be a recommendation, or money is being provided for selected projects. This other piece is secondarily to that, is that there was, in addition to the statute about the final review committee, just a concern in the past that there had been members of the final review committee that did have a conflict, and I don't know the particulars of it if they didn't declare it, but there was a perception about it. So that's why that additional change was made, that they can't even be in attendance if they were to declare, be a representative at all.
Do you know what statute that is?
Yeah, I can provide that to you. So, I should have this committed to memory at this point. It's ORS 367 084, and then it's subsection 4.
Okay, so it says ODAV statute. So it's a new one.
Yeah, it wasn't in the program. I think the first 5 or 6 cycles. When I think it was in the 2017 session that some of these changes came about.
Oh, okay, this might be after that. So I had thought that there were some conversations between aviation and ODOT where there was that ODOT had made a representation, and John, I could be wrong, and I am trying desperately to look for an old email where there was a concern on the side of aviation about their inability, these board members, all of whom run airports, or most of whom, about their ability to actually be part of the selection committee or on any of these committees and their role in that, and that it actually wasn't as limited. Do you remember any of that, or do you have that? I just
vaguely, but just as it pertains to this group here, that by all means, those folks that are on the aviation board can vote today and make recommendations about other projects and be part of the discussion. They don't have to, leave the room, so to speak. Otherwise we'd have a very small board, provided that they make the appropriate disclosures ahead of time. It's on the record, and proceed from there.
Okay, so I think the reason why I asked about whether this is an ethics conflicts versus this is more something specific to the Connect Oregon process. To be clear, and I've told aviation this, that I can't, as a part of DOJ, really provide advice about ethics, that it's really only the Ethics Commission that should be providing that advice. And I know that actually it seems like that Sarah had actually reached out to ethics too before this, which is great. But unless any of these board members have a true pecuniary interest or detriment to them as a result of their position with their respective airports, then there really shouldn't be that type of ethical conflict. So, for example, board member Nagy, who's president, Port of Portland, right? So I don't know that he would personally benefit or detriment. I mean, maybe he has a bonus, and you don't, and this is not something that you have to jump into, Steve, but that he doesn't necessarily have a personal benefit or detriment as a result of the grant. And so I think that there is a difference there. And that's why I asked, are we talking ethics conflicts, or is there a Connect Oregon conflict? And I apologize. I really don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I'm concerned that the board members are going to ask me these same questions, and I don't have good answers.
Sure. So as far as, I guess that the part that I feel more confident or certain on is, looking at the statute that says that if a member of the final review committee may not choose a member who represents an entity that submitted an application. It says entity, it doesn't, so I kind of take that as all encompassing.
Okay.
Whereas I would be definitely deferential if it turns out there's better guidance, or if the ethics commission has provided some, something, help on that front end to clarify things. I'd certainly be happy to take that in and go off of that.
I don't. I haven't talked to ethics. I think that the board would probably know better than I do. Based on what Sarah, you had said at the beginning that you actually asked ethics about it. Is that right?
Yes, and I'm just rereading the email they sent me. And because, I didn't feel like there was even a potential for a conflict of interest, but I was concerned of perception. And so that's why I reached out. And rereading this, there is kind of a fine line, because it talks about the ethics law references businesses. And by definition, public bodies are not a business. And so in some ways, personally, for my issue, I'm 2 levels removed. But that could even be applied to both Patrick, even because it's a public body, not a business.
Okay, so I think it's just one of those things that we're just not going to resolve now, and I need to look back at it. And I apologize for not. Probably these discussions should have happened before. I'm looking at this statute, and it's this direct financial interest thing again, and I don't see. It's hard to see how some of these board members who are here because they represent public entities would have a direct financial interest in an application. But
Agree on that, but I guess how
Okay,
do we
good.
get around that it says that they represent an entity? Because if you work for, say, the Port of Portland, not to pick on them, and the Port of Portland has an application in, don't they violate subsection A to be on the final review committee after the meeting?
And you're talking about ORS 367084?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm looking at sub 4.
Yeah.
To promote fairness in the selection process, the director may not choose a member of a final review committee. Okay, all right, I see what you're saying. You're right, we can't get around that.
And and just full disclosure, as staff, it's something that came about, I think, as a response. I think it's a little bit more than is probably really necessary, because it does remove people that could serve in this capacity, but it's there, so we gotta deal with that.
Okay, but there are no issues.
It seems like we're okay this year because we've got, some board members who don't have an entity that has a project, but the potential, is there in the future that everybody could. So I don't think we're going to be in a pickle this year, but I don't think that statute is going to help us necessarily in the future if we run into this.
Something to consider. Okay, but as far as a modal committee, that is not an issue, correct? Because that's not the final selection.
For today, correct.
Yeah, just disclose.
Yes.
And I think that really covers, there's no surprises after the fact.
Jim, you have your hand up. Oh, sorry, Stacy, did you have something?
Yeah, give Stacy a chance to think a little bit more. So John, the numbers kind of hit me like a sledgehammer. Is the total available funds for Connect Oregon, these grants, did you say it's about $100 million?
No, it's 100 million is being requested, but there's
Okay.
only 46.5 available.
Okay, so that kind of has some implications on recommendations from our board. Is that what's the point of recommending, any particular agency that or any airport for a grant when it's going to absorb a dramatic percentage of the total? So when we look at the scoring as a board member, and we're looking at statutes as to what how this impacts us, but now we've kind of introduced the probabilities that we should also be looking at the total amount that's going to be available and what's the reasonable amount that we could expect out of our agency through the Connect grants. How do you decide between Department of Transportation and the Department of Aviation as to, of the 40-some million dollars, how do you divide that?
It's really based on the project we receive, and actually there's quite a bit of variance between cycles as far as which mode, be it aviation, rail, marine, what comes in with more projects or a greater ask. For example, this cycle, we had more aviation projects than any other mode. That's not typical. The rail is down this year. Rail has done historically requested the most, but they're actually the lowest. So it varies cycle by cycle. So I can't say that aviation is one of 3 modes, therefore it should get about 15. It might end up being somewhere around there, but that's not a guarantee or anything hard and fast.
Okay, so from this, from a recommendation, I heard you say that one of our obligations is to break the ties of which we've, potentially, if they ultimately end up to be ties.
Mhm.
I just see the complications and the challenges of really valuable projects, but the request for fund is so substantial that it kind of reduces its opportunity to actually be awarded that. And how, it's a difficult question, but how do we wrestle with that issue as a board?
Well, Jim, this is something that we've tackled before with Connect Oregon, because there's never enough funding for all the projects, and all the projects are always very worthy. And so, we do their best to rank them the way that we see appropriately, and also to the criteria of Connect Oregon. And then we see where the chips fall out. It'd be great if we could fund everything, but yeah, that's probably one of the biggest challenges around Connect Oregon for us, trying to figure out what prioritization should be.
And
I want to keep, go ahead.
yeah, just one last piece, regarding that is, because you have the knowledge of being one of the latter groups, is that, for example, the Redmond Airport project, it is one of the larger asks, but the Region 4, the central part of the state, had it as their #1 project. So it would have to be rated very low by your group for it not to be either funded or in the mix of discussion of potentially above or below the cut line. And at least the way the list is shaping up, there's probably room for 1, 2 of these 9, 10-ish $1 million projects. Because yes, there's a way you could stack this where we only fund like 4 projects. I'm not sure. That's a very likely outcome.
You said $1 to $2 million in total funding for airport projects. Is that how I understood that?
No, I'm saying that the Redmond Airport project is a $10 million project, right. And there's probably room within this pot for 1 or 2 large projects like that.
Okay.
If you do any more, then you're only going to get a handful out of the 35 that came in.
Okay. So Jeff, I see you have your hand up as well.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate the question that Board Member Knight just brought up, because I kind of struggled with this a lot as I was going through the application reviews. So, Mr. Board, I got a couple questions for you. Having been involved with other state grant projects, most recently, Oregon Emergency Management struggled with the same sort of thing, and they ended up coming up with breaking out the award amounts, I guess, judiciously amongst different groups. So if there's 45 million, has there ever been a thought like, okay, a third goes to rail, a third goes to aviation, and a third goes to Marine, sorry. Or adjusted based on the amount of applications. And then the second thing, along with the second of my 3 questions for you is, let's say we decide we want to recommend a certain amount of projects, and we know there's a little bit of money left over, and we say, hey, we want that money to go to this particular project, even though they may have asked for 10 million. Based on what we recommend, there's only 2 million left over. Do you ever do partial funding of projects?
No, kind of for that reason. That's kind of a live dynamic environment, and that's a pretty large decision to put to an applicant. Hey, we'll give you 20%. What can you do with that? So what we would do is, if the next one on the list was, 10 million and we only had 2 left, we would go down until there was, a project that was, under, say, that hypothetical 2 million amount.
Okay. And then my last and third question, sir, is under project eligibility, what are we really looking for? Because when I look at the, eligibility requirements, man, it's broad. It makes it difficult when, we do have to make recommendations to, ODAV. Is there a little bit more that you might be able to provide us as we do deliberate and or make recommendations, other than it just generically, the funds can generically be used to undertake capital infrastructure for bridges or a project that facilitates transportation of materials, animals, or people?
Yeah, I mean, so I can kind of back up to the selection criteria is which projects do you think do the best at reducing? I'm just kind of paraphrasing the statutory considerations. What has the best economic benefit? Reduce transportation costs is a critical link in the system, and those are kind of the core justification. And if that is close, or it's hard to say between projects. There is what's the source of the applicants' matching funds? Are they certain? What are they leveraging? Are they ready for construction? Have they identified those permits? Have they shown they really thought this through and can deliver? And kind of one of the last pieces is the useful life expectancy. Usually not a problem in the aviation context, but are we getting a long-term value from it? And to circle back to one of your earlier comments, the program used to have a 10% requirement of funding go to each region, so the 5 ODOT regions, and that was eliminated because of the frustration that for some reason a region would have hardly any projects. So a marginal project in one region got funded, even though another had a number of projects that were stronger, but because of this formula that prevented them from being funded. We haven't really had the same level of conversation as it pertains to the different modes, just other than noting that, as I mentioned before, that it's over time, it's really varied. Like the last cycle, Marine was like 22 million, so Marine got half of the funding. I think it's extremely unlikely they would get half again. They might even get below whatever, a third or whatever that might be. And Region 5, the eastern part of our state, only requested $3 million worth of projects. So we don't know until they come in. So that's why that flexibility is there. I know sometimes it could be helpful to have some constraints, but kind of look to your judgment and kind of as you interpret what you think projects have made that most compelling case, and come to a consensus from there.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
John, thank you so much for your input. I think that was really helpful for all of us. So, Holly, I think what we're going to do, we're going to go to the agenda item for Kristen, so that we get that taken care of. And then I would also like to propose that we have lunch format, if that works for everybody. Okay, great. So Kristen, what is your item for us?
Okay, good afternoon. So thank you for letting me crash your Connect Oregon party here. I have a brief presentation for you. Just because of timing, I did have to get a vote on the 25-27 policy option packages. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. And I just want to point out, this is an action item, so we're going to need to be voting.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. This is an action item and we're going to do a vote. So we have 3 POPs. So those are policy option packages for the 25-27 budget. So this is where we're looking at in budget development. So right now we have developed our base budget, which is the CSL, and we've been working, Kenji's been working behind the scenes, working with Chief Financial Office and the Governor's Office to get our POPs approved by them. And so at this stage, we now are ready for the board to approve our POPs. And then after that, we will finalize our agency request budget, and that's actually due at the end of this month. And then the policy option packages and the whole entire budget will go through the entire process in the legislative session before we can execute on that budget in July of 2025. Okay, so the first POP that you're voting on is our general aviation entitlement projects. And so we put that into our budget every single budget cycle. And so it's made up of all of our smaller projects that are under $1 million. And so what we do to come up with this list is we work with the FAA and we put together our 5-year CIP, our capital improvement plan. And we break that down. I've broken it down into fiscal years so you can see what we're planning.
And I don't think we're seeing your current slide. We're still seeing just the first slide.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's see. I will stop sharing and I'll try again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so should show budget development 25-27.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this was what I was explaining. This is where we are at in budget development right now. So right now, you'll be voting on the POPs. Okay, and so the first POP is the general aviation entitlement. So you can see it's a little under $8 million total funds, and I have it broken down into federal funds and other funds. So this slide shows the projects that we have planned for fiscal year 2025. And so you can see we have a lot of pavement surface rehab projects, and those are all being paid for with BIL funds. So that's the bipartisan infrastructure law funds. So you can see on the column on the right, I put what the source of fund is. So it's either the BIL or the AIP, the Airport Improvement Program. And then the source of the matching funds for all of these is aircraft registration. So as I said, we have pavement surface rehab projects at Bandon, Chiloquin, Condon, Independence, Joseph, Lebanon, McDermott, and Malino. And then besides that, for 2025, we have the wildlife hazard assessment at McDermott. We have at Joseph, the IAP obstruction removal, easement acquisition and design, and the AWAS replacement. And for the next fiscal year, we have the second phase of several of those pavement surface rehab projects as well. And then at Aurora, we have an airfield backup generator. At Chiloquin, we have the pavement surface rehab construction on the south run-up repairs. In Independence, we have both the environmental assessment and the PAPI replacement. And then we have the second phase of that Joseph project here in 2026. And then also at Malino, we have the environmental assessment, taxiway reconstruction, and apron taxi lakes expansion. And then Siletz Bay, we have the master plan and Aegis update. So for 26, we have a little over $5 million of projects planned. And so again, there's the total funds we have broken down into federal funds, other funds, and the total funds there. Did you have any questions about any of the projects before I go on to the next POP?
So Kristen, are the projects that you're noting there, those are based on master plans, right?
Yes, they are. Yes, they're based on master plans and then the CIP that we work with the FAA. Yes.
Right, okay. Is there, Kristen, Steve, is there any opportunity if of adding to this package, say, you know, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen sometimes that the FAA will get turned back or they will get other funding and they will be looking to place it. What is the procedure that would be used if you were able to secure more than the 7.185 in federal funding and be able to go to more on the CIP list? Is there alternatives, and should we be approving alternatives that would be like the next set of if there were a greater amount of additional funds available?
Yeah, that is a good question. So in our base budget, we have about 3.5 million in general aviation entitlement funds. And so that can be used for some of the carryover projects, but that can also be used if there are some overages. So that way we have a little bit of flexibility to add on more projects. So what we would do though, if we went over that entire amount, then we would have to go to the legislator and go to the aviation board and get another approval to go beyond the funds that we have in our budget right now. So there are paths forward if we do get more funding. Okay, so the second policy option package is commercial UAS insurance. And so we're estimating the revenue for this at about 361,000 per year. And so this was actually Kenji's idea. And so this policy option package would require all commercial UAS operations. So Part 107, Part 135, and Part 91 under exemption, taking off or landing within the state of Oregon to have liability insurance that covers aviation at a minimum of 500,000. And so there would be a 5% surcharge on the UAS policy, and that would go to the Department of Aviation. And so how we came up with the numbers for that 361,000 estimate per year, the average UAS policy is about $750. So 5% of that would be $3,750. And there are 9,637 pilots in Oregon that this would apply to. So that's where we came up with that $361,000 a year revenue number. And so these funds would be used for a new AAM program. So it would support the regulation and safety of drone operations. And AAM, stands for Advanced Air Mobility. And then it would also help with the development of drone technology, workforce, and infrastructure. And some of the money would also be used for the admin costs for the program, such as travel, conferences, marketing, and other administrative costs. Did we have any questions on this one before I go to the next one?
Can you just back up one slide? So this
Is this the one, the numbers?
the one before that.
Okay.
So the insurance is provided by, it's that they're, oh, there we go. So you have to, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure I understand the requirement to get the insurance and where the insurance is.
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. I didn't hear the question.
Insurance, yeah, so that many could be.
Oh, sorry. And then the 5% surcharge is a separate repair. Is that correct?
On that insurance
On that
policy, yes.
Sorry, can you please repeat the question? We're having trouble hearing you over here online.
Yeah, sorry. So I think what I'm struggling to understand is how does that surcharge get applied? And if this is insurance that is being required and you get that insurance through a third party, how is the 5% coming back to the agency?
So what we would do if this got approved, we would work on the Oregon administrative rules in the policy to kind of work out all of the details of how that would come back to our department.
So I'm assuming from that, it means that if I'm a commercial operator, or if I'm a UAS or AAM operator and I carry some level of commercial insurance at a minimum of 500,000, I'm going to be also paying a surcharge of 5% on that. And somewhere along the way, either I pay it or it's collected through the insurance agency and paid back to ODAV.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Is it a month? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jim.
It's a 5% surcharge on their existing premium, isn't it?
So this would require the insurance. So right now, this insurance is not required. So it would require the insurance, and then the surcharge would be on the policy.
Okay, and then the second part of that is that the pilot's liability isn't limited to 500,000 of coverage of insurance. It's just the portion of their insurance that covers the Department of Aviation. Did I understand that correctly? In other words, a pilot could get $1 million of liability insurance for their aircraft. What we're asking for is a minimum of $500,000 of that covers is it the Department of Aviation, or is it just not Department of Aviation? Well, maybe it's a better question is what is being covered under what you're saying is aviation? Is that the plane? Is it the person? Is it in case that there's an accident, or what? When you think about the liability, is it the liability of something that really goes wrong, that the minimum is 500,000 that we're protected with?
No, it's not that, it's not for the Oregon Department of Aviation to be protected. So it would just require them to have the insurance at a minimum of 500,000.
Okay.
So it really, yeah. And then we would just collect the surcharge.
Okay.
And I know that there's more details that definitely need to be worked out, you know, through administrative rule. And the board would be a part of that process as well.
And
Okay.
then yeah, hand up, and I
So,
don't know. But-
Jeff
but-
has his hand up. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I got two questions for you. First, just to make sure I'm following along with what Mr. Knight was saying. If a commercial entity ended up with a $7 million policy because they're flying movie cameras with their uncrewed aircraft, it would be 5% on that 7 million, is what you're saying.
Yes, I understand that is how Kenji had proposed it.
Okay, and then the second part of, or sorry, my second question is, what's the definition of commercial? And the reason for asking that is government users of uncrewed aircraft, are they going to fall underneath the commercial entity and be subjected to not only having to do a 5% surcharge on UAS policy, but what is the stance right now with Oregon Department of Aviation and the requiring of only public entities registering their aircraft with Oregon Department of Aviation? Where are those funds going to go? Are they going to be part of these funds? Or are they going to continue just to go into the general fund? And sort of an add-on to that, sorry, I'm kind of going off a little bit here, but interestingly, if we're going to be focusing now on commercial operators, government entities also fall underneath commercial. Does that mean that that licensing requirement for UAS is going to go away, or is that going to stay?
Okay, so for the first question, I don't believe this will apply to government entities.
Okay.
And there's currently no change to the funds for the public entities right now. So it's not part of this to change those funds, but that could be a separate rule change. But right now, what the public entities pay, it's not tied to this at all.
Okay. Yeah, it just would make sense if UAS operators are paying a licensing fee to Oregon Department of Aviation. Should it not go back to this program, which is supposed to help promote, as opposed to just end up in the general fund? But thank you for answering those questions.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And once we have this set up, we'll have an actual program that could go into. So that could be a change that we make in the future to those public funds as well, go into the AAM program. That's a good idea.
And Kristen, just to correct me if I'm wrong, what we're approving right now is the concept of a finance policy that would establish this. The rulemaking associated with how and who it applies to and its implementation in that is what would come at a later time. What we're just asking for right now is this a good legislative concept to have a 5% surcharge on the UAS commercial operators insurance policy? How it's applied, to whom it's applied, all comes at a later time, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bring this up for potential legislation.
Correct.
Okay, one last time, Kristen. Is it the 5% surcharge? Is it on the premium of the policy, or is it 5% of the $500,000?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It is on the premium of the policy.
Okay.
Okay, do you have any more questions on that, or would you like me to move on to the third one?
I think we beat that one up pretty good.
Yeah, I think we probably needed some pre-planning for our brains to to capture that concept. And I guess I still have some questions about forwarding it to be put into some kind of legislative format without really understanding impacts to commercial users. And I realize a lot of that gets worked out in rulemaking.
The administrative
And
process.
theoretically, actually, legislative writing of that bill. But I don't know that we've had enough time to absorb and think about all of the repercussions potentially of forwarding this to legislation without really thinking about impacts to users and our commercial. So I don't know how other board members were feeling, but I don't know.
No,
I'm
I
ready to
totally
do
agree.
that today.
I agree.
Okay.
So yeah, you can tell us the third one, and then we'll pick and choose which ones we want to vote about.
Okay. Okay. So the third POP is POP 102, and it's for software aircraft registration and airport leasing. So this would be to purchase new software for both aircraft registration and airport leasing programs. So we're estimating that'll cost about $70,000 for the biennium. And so how we came up with this cost is we have been asking for some quotes from some companies kind of at the beginning of the procurement process just to gather the information. And so it's estimated that there will be about $30,000 for the initial setup of the software and then about $20,000 per year. So for the first biennium, it would be about $70,000. Future bienniums, it would be about $40,000 to maintain it. And so right now our aircraft registration software, it's over 20 years old. And so it has a lot of issues. It's very limited what we can do for it. We can't run very many reports. We can't do very many searches. We can't put in more entries. And so it's always giving us problems, and it's really slowing down our process of registering aircraft. And then also with airport leasing, there's also some problems with the system. And so we're just wanting to get something more efficient and probably find something one software that can help us with both of those programs. So that is our ask for. The budget is a $70,000 increase so we can purchase those softwares. Did you have any questions about that POP?
Only, and this is maybe not for you, Kristen, but maybe for Kenji at a later time. How will that affect efficiency of staffing? Obviously, if you have a software that does this, hopefully that means you can redeploy staff who is now doing a bunch of manual inputs. So maybe that's just a follow-up for Kenji for us to have some additional information. Will that free you up or other staff up to do other things?
Right. Yeah, it should free up. So we have one staff that does all of the aircraft registration right now, and she also has other tasks that she does. So that would free up her time to be able to help with some more tasks or some more administrative tasks. And then we also have one staff that does all of the airport leasing. So hopefully that would help him be more efficient and stay more on top of the leases and have everything run more efficiently.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment, Kristen, that John Bourne mentioned that he's stepping out, but he's rejoining after lunch.
Okay.
So actually, Andrew just answered a question for me, which was, are you using a software system currently? And it's like this replacement, but it's not.
Not for leases. We don't currently have software.
Yes, and for aircraft registration, yes, we do have a software, but it's over 20 years old, so it has a lot of issues.
So it's replacing that, but adding the leasing. So, okay.
Correct, yes.
Okay, any other questions? So I think we need to break three
Looks like
things.
Jim has a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Uh, If we do, what's the impact if we do not vote on POP 101?
So POP 101, if you don't vote to approve it, we won't add it to our budget. So we'll just, we would remove that from our budget.
Okay.
And so we're submitting our agency request budget at the end of this month.
Okay. I did, that obviously was the one that was the murkiest of the three, and I'm just, I understand that we can clean it. We're going to clean this up as time goes on before it gets finalized. Is that how I understand? I know that we want to get this into the budget.
Well, Jim, I think we're going to break these out into three different votes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be my suggestion, that we do it that way. So Kristen, you want to take the first one? The first one I think is more straightforward because it is on the CIP.
Yes, we could definitely break them off into 3 votes.
You want motions on each one?
Yeah, so I guess we need a motion on the first one. If you want to go back to the first screen, Kristen, just so we are very clear on what we're voting on.
Yes, definitely.
I'll make a motion that we adopt POP 100 funding as presented.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that first one passes then. Go to the next item.
So I'll make a motion that we approve POP 101 as presented.
Have a second?
Do we have time for amendments, or?
We do.
I think that this just requires, I can support the proposal, but I think it requires some feedback back to the board from staff about how this is, you know, not just the rulemaking process, but also how has this been socialized with industry, and what is the overall impact to this emerging industry with this. I think there's just a little more administrative. I can support this concept legislatively going forward, but I think there's more information that needs to come back to us either at the next board meeting or at some point about industry standards, how this fits within that, and just overall of how the concept of this is going to work out in a legislative process or an adoption process.
And I would just like to echo that. I feel like,
Speak up, I think they can hear you.
you know, we're basically approving the concept for a new tax.
Yes.
And
Right.
We didn't have any idea coming into this meeting that that's different than the other POPs. And just because of that, I do have a lot of reservation for the reasons Steve and you mentioned.
Yeah, so I know we're not really in the discussion part, but that's why I'm not comfortable about additional information, even just put it more.
Sorry, could you speak up? I couldn't really hear
Yeah,
you.
sorry,
Chair.
that's why I'm not comfortable with even moving this forward at this point, because we don't have that check and balance on, has this been even out there at all for anybody to discuss.
Kristen, or perhaps someone else, maybe you can chime in. If we move this forward as part of the POP, can this be pulled from the overall budget request at a later time? As opposed to adding something in is next to impossible. Can something be removed?
That's my motion.
Yes, we could remove it at a later time. So we have 3 different sections of the budget that we'll go through. So the agency request budget, and then the governor's budget, and then the LAB. And so we could remove it at a later time. Yes.
Okay.
And Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but we talked about this a little bit, but even if this is approved right now in the budget, this could still be not approved by the board later when it comes to the legislative and the rulemaking.
Correct.
And all of those details are going to be worked out then. And if nobody felt comfortable with say something at that point, then that's when it would just stop.
Exactly.
So this would just be included only in the budget as like planning forward. If this were to happen, this is what it would tentatively look like. But again, it could
And the tentative amount of revenue it could generate.
Yeah, I think we understand that, and I am gonna get to the questions here. I would just say, I have a concern around optics also, that, you know, we're covered, like Sarah said, put forward a new tax potentially. But without really all of the information that we need to consider what a, big deal that is, right? So, I don't know whose hand was up first. Oh, I do.
Jeff.
Yeah.
Jeff is first.
Chair Stevens, just for the record, has anyone seconded this yet?
No.
No.
Okay, I'll second the motion so we can continue the discussion.
Thank you.
Oh,
did you have another?
I agree with, all the colleagues that are providing input on this topic. There needs to be a lot more discussion. And I think maybe we may want to amend our motion, the initial motion. We could vote this down and start a new motion. But I do want to point out one of the things that's lagging in our state with regard to this technology and this type of aviation is that we don't have a good funding pool. So I admire the creativity of this. From an optics perspective, it may seem presumptive of the board to potentially take any action, but if I understand our Oregon budgeting process, if we don't have these discussions now, we would have to wait until, 28, 29 budget if we wanted to do something like this. Is that right, Kristen? Because our budgets are based on 2 years.
Yeah, they're based on 2 years. So this will be for the 25-27 budget. Yeah, so we would wait till the 27-29 if we wanted to wait to do something.
And for those that did head down to San Diego this year, I just want to remind everyone there's a lot that's happening in the industry, and we do need to talk more about how we want to include this type of newer aviation potential in our state, and we can't do that if we don't come up with a creative way of funding it. So I'm looking forward to more discussion. Sorry, Jim, for taking up so much time. I know you got a question.
No, it's just a comment. Jeff, I totally agree with you with the point of order of a motion and a second, and then we can have some discussion. Kristen, please think quickly, if you can, about how do we modify the motion so that it incorporates further discussion and understanding of the impacts of 101. So.
For me, I made the motion knowing that it would go into a process, because that's what we do for cities as mayor, right? So I was just putting it on the book. So there was this is the way it's normally done.
No, I appreciate that. And I think it's mainly because none of us have heard about this today. And so.
I just think there needs to then be a restatement of the motion, because that's a long motion that you just gave us.
No, what I said was I don't think it needs to be restated, because this is what you want to change the motion to is actually the standard process. So you're just asking for the motion to state what we would normally do.
Okay.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
I see Stacy came on video.
Thank you. I just wanted to address Board Member Knight's question. So it really depends on what you want the motion to be. You would have to make a new motion. And I apologize, I'm not entirely clear on whether you want to not approve this or recommend it or take it off, or if you do, or if you want to stay with the motion. And I can help draft something if you want to amend it, but someone would have to make a new motion. You'd have to withdraw the existing motion and then make a new motion.
I just wanted to condense the motion to an understandable with some more clarity. I think that would be helpful.
But not change the substance of it.
Correct.
I'm struggling with coming up with the words to do what you this, to do what you're asking to do, right? We're going to follow the process. So we could change the motion to say, yeah, we'll approve this and follow the process. I'm not sure what the proper language you're looking for here is.
So I think what would be helpful from staff is to bring us draft motions that we could then tweak. But I would like to know the consequence, Stacy. Sorry, Kristen. If we don't forward this today, is this our last opportunity to do this in this budget cycle?
Yes, so I do have to submit the agency request budget at the end of this month. So if this isn't approved, then I wouldn't include it in our agency request budget.
Jeff has his hand up.
Yeah, I believe I was going to have a similar question to what the chair just asked. Would it be reasonable if we were to maybe vote down this this motion and come up with a new motion that basically says, hey, we like the concept, we need to talk about this more in the future through discussions, bringing in the commercial industry, commercial UAS industry, and we determine, yep, this is the direction we want to go. Just because it's included in the budget doesn't necessarily mean that this is a foregone conclusion. Is that correct?
Correct, because there'll be rulemaking. If it were to pass the budget.
Here, let me throw out a recommendation real fast. Is Kristen and Stacy, could you get together during lunch and redraft the motion that you proposed? And that was pending a vote. So that might be the easiest. I do agree. Let's get this done today, but let's clean up the motion enough that it's going to be understandable and satisfactory.
Okay.
So we do have a motion and a second. I think we probably need to either vote this down and move on and come back to it, after lunch or after some clearer language or direction. But we do have one other pop that we need to either approve or not approve. Is that correct?
Yes, we do.
I believe it's reasonable as the person who made the motion for me to withdraw the motion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will withdraw my motion to approve POP 101 as presented.
Okay.
Right, thank you. We will wait for a refined motion and we can move on to the third one.
I move that we move forward with POP 102.
Second.
Right. The second was from Jim.
Yes.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right, that motion carries. Okay, so we'll give Kristen and Stacy a little moment here to redraft something for us. Does anybody need a break, or do you want to pivot to Stacy? I see ladies.
So so Kristen and I can get together. Kristen, if that's okay with you, we'll get together on this. And honestly, it might be helpful, board member night, for you to maybe meet with us, because I want to be really clear on what it is that you are asking for us to do. And are you asking to create a motion where you will recommend or approve this POP, but you want to be able to have further consideration at a later meeting? Are you directing staff to bring you additional information?
On the first part that you just stated is, I just sense there was a lot of discussion over this and there's some confusion about what we were really trying to do and how to do that. So my emphasis is on just clear up the motion so that we understand that this isn't the final decision. This is part of the process, like what was stated earlier.
Okay, so I think, I think it might be very simple that if what it is, so you would need to make a motion first that someone's going to approve POP 101. And then what you can do is you further move to have staff bring this back to you at a future meeting with additional information to address the questions that have been brought up by the board today.
Perfect. That was a good motion.
Is everyone?
Someone could literally say, so moved.
Yeah.
And
So moved.
All right, Bill, so moved. Is
All
there a
right.
second for this revised?
I'll second that.
Okay, and Jim has.
Oh, sorry.
No, I don't, no, I think a board member needs to make the motion. If you, I would repeat exactly back what you just said, Stacy, as the motion.
I think,
Yeah, well, we have
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
we have a motion